Either side you may go to.
Alderman Rady, I'm a little confused. This is a P&D meeting, so we can make citizen comment here, too.
Do you have an item?
I'm not going to speak about P1, 2, or 3. Is that the only things you should make a comment about?
I would prefer, yeah. What are you here for?
The trees.
The trees, okay. Those are on the other agenda. So why don't you just wait and speak at council? Make sure you put your name on the sign-up sheet.
Is council later, or are we talking about next Monday?
No. It's right after this meeting.
Okay.
Okay. Next person is Virginia Mann, same thing? Okay, all right. We're down to 3. Ted Mavakis? Yes. You don't want to speak here. You have a special use, do you have a building issue? Okay, all right. Reverend Mark Dennis, I know you're here for an item on our agenda. I saw him, there he is. Nice to see you again.
Good to see you as well, and all of the other council members. Thank you for this opportunity to again represent the interfaith community and other religious organizations who have, not by our design, but by word of mouth, have come on board to express a concern and dismay and a plea to ask you to give more time for the consideration of this ordinance, Ordinance 77010. It is very important that we state clearly that we are not opposed to the Alderman's desire to improve economic development on Howard Street. We stand with her in improving the quality of life. That is not our argument and never has been. We stand with the fact that entities within the community must also be viable, sustainable, and make a direct and indirect contribution to the community. That is our legacy. We do not agree, however, that churches and houses of worship demean the character and the quality of life, and that the value of those churches is narrowed down to simply producing revenue and taxes for the city. Many of us pay taxes for the city because we have other properties that generate revenue. And many of us pay to park and pay to go to worship and pay to go to meetings. And many of our houses of worship, the people and the volunteers come to feed the poor, to clothe them, to find housing for them, and yet we ask for no special appeasement. We pay our way. We pay in the parking garages. And we, though do not have an economic impact study to validate our assumptions, we know that we contribute mightily after worship and before worship to the businesses in our neighborhoods. We work in the neighborhoods. We employ most of the people as we are part of the not-for-profit sector. So our value to this community far exceeds the quantitative measurement of dollars to the community. We do not make profits. We do not pad or line our pockets. We are called and feel a sense of obligation because of our mission. Businesses develop and are driven out of productive and productivity and profit motivations. We're not fighting that, but we want to understand that at the end of the day, our greater good for this society stands shoulder above many of the institutions. In fact, if you were to do a survey, even conduct a cursory survey of many of the larger houses of worship, they started as storefront churches. Look at them. They are now 100, 110, 120 years. We can never despise small beginnings. And so we want to find a way, with the council's permission, to allow us to have conversation about how we can achieve both to ventilate and share the good that comes out of good organizations like houses of worship, and at the same time share the good that comes out of economic development. And we would like to use Howard Street as an example of that economic development within this community. For the long-term good of this community, we recommend that we take just a little bit more time to work out the language, because the language has troubling parts to it, particularly in singling out houses of worship. The language needs more attention. And since we are not trying to generate attention beyond our houses of worship, somebody is, and somebody's looking at the language and very concerned about how this might be applied and inferred to other communities where houses of worship are being developed. Finally, this petition, if read and loosely interpreted, would forbid the gathering of people because of their religious values as a new start-up church unless it is approved and governed by what the ordinance prescribes as it is written. We think that that is a gross neglect and infringement upon church and state and needs to be thought through a little bit more carefully. The general intent for this ordinance is understood, and we want to find ways in which we can help the community, particularly on Howard Street, to grow. But the language is too loose, too broad, and has inference to too many different organizations.
Reverend, I'm going to have to
particularly
ask you
in the
to
religious community.
wind it up. We have a long night.
Thank you. But I hope you have heard our concerns. Thank you very much.
I would prefer you use Central Street as opposed to Howard Street as your test area.
I'm sorry, say that again.
I said I would prefer you use Central Street as opposed to Howard Street as your test area. So, anyway, we'll talk about that later. And I was very pleased to see that you came to Howard Street and went on the tour with us. Thank you very much. I know you're a busy man.
That's our commitment to you and to the city. Thank you.
Okay. Muffy McCauley?
Good evening, and thank you for letting me have a word. It is not just Howard Street that has been affected by a proliferation of small houses of worship. We have started development of the loft spaces on the west side of Evanston by Simpson Street. Simpson Street, which had been a major corridor of commerce in the Fifth Ward for many, many years before the decline on the west side. John and I, my husband and I, have been developing loft spaces for live work, for offices and other small businesses on the west side. That program was going pretty well, but in the last several years, as small businesses have struggled, a number of our the people who have officed in our spaces have had concerns because along Simpson Street, we have at Payne and Ashland, the Jehovah's Witnesses, the Church of God, Faith Temple, the new mosque, which is a welcome addition, and also another 5 storefront churches along Simpson Street. So the net result of that has been that the businesses are leaving, and they're leaving because a restaurant can't make it on a strip where there are no businesses except on Sundays and occasionally on Wednesdays. Small shops, dry cleaners, the shoe repair person. Look at all of the businesses that had been along Simpson Street, which are no longer there, because there is no real viable foot traffic except for small portions of the day. I'm reminded of my days as a child, and on Halloween, my mother had to explain the concept to me that sometimes there can be too much of a good thing. I don't think that anyone wants to take anything away from the churches and what they do for our community. I think that we are really grateful for the strong fabric that houses of worship confer on this community. But it is a question of balance. And I think that all of the business districts in the city of Evanston, for there to be vitality, need to have a greater degree of diversity. What I understand is being proposed is that houses of worship become a special use. Now, we worked through the MUE zoning, the transitional manufacturing zoning for the city of Evanston, when there was a desire to revitalize portions of the city and reactivate buildings that had become obsolete for manufacturing use. And massaging that whole new zoning district was about, we'll start with special uses for these. It only gives us the opportunity to say, have we gone overboard in this particular area? If not, fine. It's wonderful. And I believe, I agree with you that small beginnings are where we all come from. But I do think that we need to maintain some balance, and we need to have a plan that assures some diversity and vitality, particularly to our emerging business districts that are crying out for a little greater balance. I thank you for your time.
Okay, let's move on. The first item on our agenda, thank you all for speaking. First item on our agenda is item 90010, which grants a special use for an adult daycare at 524-526 Davis Street in the D4 Downtown Transitional Zoning District. Can I have a motion to introduce?
Move to introduce.
Okay.
Second.
Any discussion? Alderman Fisk?
Thank you, Alderman Rainey, and thank you for allowing me to speak to the committee about this tonight. We've had a meeting of First Ward residents who would be affected by this facility, and I'm here tonight to ask the committee to oppose this, granting this special use. There are several serious concerns about the facility. The main one being that this would take up a ground floor retail space that the community is very much hoping will be filled, and in order to make a contribution not only to the tax base but to the successful restaurants that exist on the north side of Davis Street at this location. There are also additional concerns about not only the program that is being described for the adult daycare, but also drop-offs and pickups at this location. It's very close to Chicago Avenue, very close to, as I said, a lot of very active restaurants. Congestion in this block is particularly tight. Although one of the restrictions that ZBA put on this use was to drop off and pick up in the back, as we know that probably will not happen consistently. So for that reason and for others, I would ask the committee's denial of this application.
Could we, hold on. Alderman Holmes, I'm sorry.
I just have some concerns about the programming. I'm not sure what this means, an adult daycare center, because it talked about people being able to not being, I don't want to use the word supervised, but it said people would be able to come and go. And so I'm just trying to get the focus of this type of daycare center. Adult daycare centers that I know about are a little bit different. So is there somebody who can speak to that?
Hi, can you tell us your name and where
Certainly.
you're from?
My name is Elio Montenegro. I am the Vice President of Operations for Omega Healthcare, which is a partner organization with the Omega Community Healthcare Organization, which is the one that is sponsoring and hosting the adult daycare program.
And where is that based? Can you tell us location-wise?
Omega, the main office is in Park Ridge, Illinois, and we have a current adult daycare center in Lincolnwood, Illinois, and I'd like to briefly describe what it is that we do there.
But
because-
tell us what you do you want to do on Davis also.
Right, exactly, and I want to do that by describing what we are currently doing in Lincolnwood, which is the model that we want to employ here. First of all, I'd like to thank the opportunity to address the group and talk about that, and I also want to thank Alderman Fisk for the opportunity to meet with the community and have a chance to discuss with them what it is that this program is all about. The adult daycare program that we currently have, again, in Lincolnwood, which is what we want to replicate here on Davis Street, is a program for about 20, it ranges between 18 to 22 adults, senior adults that come to the center. These are active seniors, 65 plus. They come to the facility roughly from 10 o'clock in the morning till about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And once in our center, they are provided with activities to ensure that they remain physically active, mentally active, socially engaged, to ensure that they are very much involved in the social activities with other friends. The activities that we provide there range from arts and crafts, bingo activities, games, exercises. We take them on field trips once a week. Again, all with the ultimate goal of keeping these adults engaged, active, and very much involved socially with other adults. What we propose to do here on the Davis facility is very much the same thing. In fact, one of the attractive features about Evanston is the vibrant downtown community. And what we see here is that this is an opportunity for our active adults to get up and not only stay in the center and participate in the activities, but also go to the local restaurants, go to the local shops, very much be engaged in the community and participate in the activities that downtown Evanston has to offer.
Dolores, can I ask a question?
Yeah, because I have some more. but
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
No, I could read that, but can you describe a little bit more about the actual adults that will be coming? And you said they're 65 and over. This is the Omega Community Health Care who is co-sponsoring this.
Correct.
So are there any health issues with the adults?
No more than anyone that's 65 or over in this room would have. These are, again, this is a social activity. This is not a healthcare organization. We're not providing any healthcare. This is a very much similar to the other end of the spectrum when you have a daycare for children. This is daycare for adults. So we provide activities.
So they could
and
just
entertainment.
easily go to the Levy Center or go to Foster Fleetwood or Jourdain Center for activities.
There are a lot of options. Absolutely. They can go anywhere. They can go to the movies if they want. What makes us unique is that we provide activities that are centered for that and focused on that particular age group. So these are activities that that they will find interesting, and it's been successful in Lincolnwood for us. We expect it to be successful here and in other communities where we want to replicate it.
And do you pick them up, and or are they picked up by?
Yes. We have 2 vehicles, and Alderman Fisk mentioned that there were questions raised about the pickup and the drop-off. We very much have expressed a willingness to work with the city in making sure that the drop-off and the pickup is done in the back. And in fact, we're working very closely with the landlord, the property owner, to in the back make sure that we have the right access for the seniors. We have looked at it. Our bus certainly can come, and there's plenty of room in the back. In fact, there's parking. So we've actually gone through the motions, if you will. We've rehearsed how this bus would pull in to ensure that this is done on a daily basis through the alley.
Are there pick up and drop off? Sorry, I lost my thought. See, I'm a senior, so maybe I need the service.
You're welcome to come and join us.
Get you a little daycare there.
A little daycare service for me. I had another question, and it just slipped my mind just that quick, but it'll come back on Marina.
All right, I'll be here.
All right, I'd like to know how it is that people come to your service. And secondly, how is it paid for?
There are many ways that folks can come. Number one, currently, the way that it's done at our facility in Lincolnwood is we have 2 buses and we pick them up.
No, that's not what I mean. I mean, how is it that people access? Are they recommended by a physician, by their social worker, by their caseworker? Does somebody just call you up, like Dolores, and say, I'd like to come to your daycare center?
Correct. 90% of the calls are just like that.
All right,
They
and
call
how
and-
is it paid for? Out of a person's pocket? Is it covered by insurance?
We have
What?
individuals that pay out of their pocket, and we have others that are, if they qualify for state assistance, they are paid, reimbursed by the state.
All right, under what department?
The Illinois Department on Aging.
On
So those
Aging.
that qualify can apply for that, and those that pay out of their pockets, and many do, will just pay a daily fee of $60.
I think what we're trying to drill down to is, why is this called daycare? The daycares I know about are people with Alzheimer's, people with cognitive issues, people who are not able to care for themselves during the day, or their relatives or caregivers need respite. So why do you call it daycare if these are fully functional senior citizens who could be over at the Evanston Athletic Club just as well as being at your facility?
And valid point, and I take your point, maybe we should have called it adult day services. In fact, when we,
No,
on
that
a
would have kept me
casual-
away, too.
Yeah, if we refer, I mean, we use that term because that's a term that in the industry is associated with a place where senior adults go to participate in these activities. And
Where are they coming from?
That was my.
right now, the ones that could,
No,
the
they're
folks-
going to be at Davis. Where will they come from?
we don't know. They could be from next door. They could be from Wilmette, Skokie. We really have no way of knowing. What we do is we promote the activities, and then folks sign up, very much like Alderman Holmes. She hears about it and then calls us and signs up for it.
All right, how much does it cost?
It's $60 a day.
$60 a day. And what do you get for $60 a day?
You get breakfast, lunch, and a snack.
But it's not prepared on site.
Correct. It's all catered. We buy it from the local restaurants. So we made that clear in the previous meetings that we've had, that all of the food is brought in, it's not prepared on site. And we all get it from the local restaurants, obviously, because it gets delivered immediately thereafter, gets served.
So what is the monthly fee? I'm not good at math. So it's $60 a day times 5 is $300 a week
Sure, not everybody comes.
times 4.
Times
So
4.
that's $1,200 a month.
Right. Give or take, not everyone comes 5 days a week.
And you're saying it's not therapeutic in any way or clinical in any way?
Well, again, it's not a clinical
I mean, this
program.
is therapy
It's-
for some of us, so that's not what I mean. I mean realistic, actual, factual therapy or
Yeah, you're,
full services.
sorry, Alderman Holmes, I'm sorry, I want to use this as an example.
No,
but
that's all
it
right.
may
This is
be-
how I get my therapies
Right.
on Monday nights.
And it may be that instead of staying at home doing nothing, a senior may choose to come to a program like this, and then get those therapeutic exercises that, similar to what Alderman Holmes gets here on Monday.
What's the square footage of this facility?
3,000 square feet I referred to.
And how many people are you going to have in there every day?
18 to 20.
18 to 20.
18, on
many-
average, we said 20.
And how many staff people?
We have 2 to 3.
2 to 3 staff people
Right.
at 18, 20. Okay. And the percentage of publicly subsidized recipients
Don't know, that all depends
in
on,
your program now?
in the program now, it's
Lincoln.
about 50/50.
50-50?
50 self-pay and 50 who qualify for the Illinois Department on Aging program.
Okay. Alderman Holmes?
No, that's it. That's
Okay.
all right. You asked my question.
Alderman Nguyen, then Alderman Fisk.
Yes, I think Alderman Rainey may have asked my question, but I noticed in the materials here that you also potentially provide legal assistance and housing assistance. Could you talk about that?
You know, we haven't had, we try to provide information to seniors And if someone comes and asks us for some assistance in that respect, we would connect them. We would take the time to pick up the phone and make the calls necessary to make the connection. We don't have anyone on staff that will be providing legal assistance or housing assistance. We will most likely will make the call and put them in touch with the proper local authorities.
What about the nutritional counseling?
We have someone that comes once a month. We have a nurse that comes in. Sometimes, depending on if there's a request, we can have a health fair on the second week of the month, where they come in and provide nutritional information, tips on how to stay healthy and active. It's a way to keep them healthy and engaged during this period of their lives.
So are there any other services that we might put under the umbrella of medical?
No, none.
And it serves up to 18 clients a day, but for instance, at your Lincolnwood site, is it similar sized?
It is similar size.
So how many total clients do you serve, if not everyone comes every day?
On average, 18 to 20.
No, but I meant the total number of people who are signed up.
Who are signed up? I'll have to take a guess. I think we have as many as 27 signed up. Not everybody comes at the same time.
At Lincolnwood?
Yes. Now, these are folks that are, again, signed up, and some just come for one day. Some are there 4 days out of the week. There are a few that are there 5 days a week. But when we reach the maximum, which in Lincolnwood is 22, once we reach that 22 for that particular day, then we're maxed out.
Okay.
That's all for now.
Alderman Jean-Baptiste, Alderman Holmes, and then Alderman Fisk. Oh, I'm sorry.
Are you licensed by anyone?
The Illinois Department on Aging and in the Omega Home Health Company is licensed by Medicare.
Okay, and you licensed as a what?
I can't answer that. I'll have to get back to you. I want to make sure that I give you the correct answer. I don't know.
Okay. In terms of the legal services that you offer, you guys provide, are you connected with any law firms
No, it's
to whom you refer clients who may become disabled and need guardians and stuff like that?
no. That your question is similar to the other question about housing assistance. Again, if someone comes in, one of the participants says, "I'm looking for an attorney," we probably would just pick up the phone and see what legal assistance.
So why do you say you provide legal service? That's like any one of us. If anybody asks us for an attorney and we know one, we might refer them.
We provide the service in terms of helping them identify a source where they can get legal assistance. We don't have anyone on staff that can provide the legal assistance.
Okay.
No, do we engage in doing that?
What is it that individuals commit to when they apply? Do you lien their mortgages, their homes? Do you you lien their savings?
Nope.
Folks who don't pay, what happened?
Individuals that, as I said earlier, we charge $60 a day. So those individuals that don't pay, then the next day when they want to come back, then if they don't pay, they can't participate in the programs. Those individuals that qualify for the state, then we get reimbursed from the state. But at no time do we require them to pay up front, do we require them to put any collateral or anything of the sort. What has happened is, given the economic times that we've had many seniors who come in and say, "We want to participate in your activities. We can't pay you until a week later or 2 weeks later." That's fine with us. We work that out. But at no time do we ever seek any liens or any collateral, or we have not gone after anyone to seek payment, or would we ever do anything like that. We are in the business of providing a service to a group of residents who we believe it's growing, as we all know, and there's more and more in need of that. And what we want to do as medical providers that all of us are, we want to create an environment where they stay healthy, and we want them to be engaged. And for us to be able to create that environment is the number one goal that we have when we come in every day.
Okay.
What is it that people put on? What does your application your form asks?
It's the basic information, and it doesn't ask for anything in particular, other than the basic information, some information on their current status, health, any particular needs that they may have. And that's it. It's very basic. It's not a long, prolonged process. I mean, you can come in and fill it out. It takes 2 minutes, and in you go. Again, the idea is to create an environment where they are engaged, and that is what we strive for, and that's what we hope to replicate here in Evanston.
Alderman, I have an announcement that the mayor asked me to make. Someone has advised us that there's a car in the parking lot. It's a yellow car, and its lights are on. And the license plate number, I think, are 877777. I think it's on its way to Elgin. Yes.
There's also a Blue Explorer.
And a Blue Explorer? Thank you. So you might want to check if you have a blue car or a yellow car, your lights are on. So, all right, who was next? Alderman Wilson, I don't know where you came. You want to be next?
You know what, I think my question's answered.
Okay. Alderman Holmes, and
just-
then Alderman Fisk, and then we're going to have to wind it up.
This is just real quick. In terms of the 2 or 3 staff people, are you one of those staff people?
No, I'm not.
Okay, well,
I'm not.
could you tell me the background, what their background is?
Sure. There's one activity director. It's a person that has experience in creating activities for these type of clients. So someone that has a background in creating, working with seniors and creating activities that are pertinent to them. The executive director, if you will, or the director of the office is a person who has a clinical background. Currently, the person that heads the office in Lincolnwood, or the center in Lincolnwood, is someone who is a physical therapist by education, just as a coincidence. So we would look to do the same thing here. And then the other person is the driver, who will be driving folks back and forth.
So you have a director with a clinical background
Right.
and an activities
An
coordinator.
activity director who has...
And then a driver. Those are
Correct.
the 2 or 3 staff
Those are the
people.
3, right.
Alderman Fisk?
During the neighborhood meeting, we had asked if your clients would be allowed to leave the facility during the day. Could you tell the committee what you said?
Yes, there are individuals that want to leave are obviously allowed. This is not a locked down facility. They can come and go. If there are individuals that want to go by themselves, certainly in this facility, it's an environment that allows for that. The Lincolnwood facility doesn't, because then it's in a strip surrounded by Tui and Lincoln, and it's just very dangerous. But here, they can certainly go out. If someone wants to be escorted, they can be escorted, or they can go in groups as well if they feel more comfortable doing it.
What you said during the meeting was that there had to be an employee accompanying the clients if they wish to leave during the day. So now you're saying that they can go out by themselves?
They can go out by themselves.
Okay.
And if I said that earlier, I meant it in a way that, what I meant to say was that if they want to be accompanied by one of the staff person, we can certainly facilitate for that. But the reality is that this is not a lockdown facility, so at any given time, anybody can just go out. And certainly, I think that the temptation would be here for them to go out to, especially the pizzeria that's opening right next door, and have something to eat.
Okay. All right. Anybody else on the committee wish to speak? Okay. I'll entertain any action you might wish to take, committee. Alderman Nguyen.
Well, I appreciate the nature of the business that you're providing, but I agree with Alderman Fisk that this section of Davis Street is really a retail and commercial district, and it is very busy during the day. And the hope would be, especially with the restaurant coming in at the corner, that would be a spark for more commercial and real estate, retail environment to revive there. And I think it would this is not the best location for that. This does take up a space that we really need to have and be enlivened by having more retail. So I believe can I amend the motion?
Yep.
All right.
Okay.
I would move to amend the motion to oppose the decision of the Zoning Board of Appeals and not grant the special use,
So to deny the special.
to deny the special use.
Is there a second?
Or no objection to the amendment?
Yeah.
All those in favor of recommending denial of the special use, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. All right, the committee has voted to deny. We'll report it to the council, and it'll be on the council agenda, just like you see it, but it'll be on for an amended motion of denial of the special use.
Is that for the meeting tonight, or?
Yes, yes. we will.
Okay. Will
It'll
we have
be
an
an
opportu-
introduction to deny.
I'm sorry. Say-
There will be, it'll be an introduction to deny. If that's wrong, Mr. Farrar, is that correct?
Right.
All right, that's correct. So it'll be the first reading to deny. It'll give people an opportunity to come and, argue for or against.
Okay, fair enough.
On this matter?
He said-
You know what, I understand, are you the landlord for this?
Yes.
You are. I'll give you like 3 minutes, okay? We have so much, including more and more.
Okay, my name is Ted Mavrakis. I own the property, and for 3 years this property is empty. I mean, I struggle to pay the mortgage. I just received the property taxes, which is huge. And yes, I would welcome another restaurant. I would welcome another tenant there. But can you please find me one of those? I can't. So now when Omega approached me, yes, as a landlord, I have to screen the prospective tenant. And I went at the location on Lincolnwood, and I saw their place. And I checked them. And that the same week, they had a party, that Omega, and I visited that, and guess who was there? The Secretary of State, Jesse White. And he was praising them, how much goodness provide to the community with, this type of service. And I thought, my goodness, this is a perfect tenant for me. And so that's how I accept it. So now for me to be here today and see that you refuse or you don't allow a prospective tenant to come to my property, that means the property will stay empty for God knows how long. And if I'm at the brink of not paying the mortgage, it may, the property go foreclosed, and then what? Yes, the time is not right that we have a selection where I can pick up, okay, you or you or you as a tenant. And I don't think the service that I saw on Lincolnwood are not appropriate. I mean, actually, these are people who are adult people, but they are active. They will become the customers for the restaurants that we're talking about. So I want you to think in those terms, and,
Our deliberations are not over. We'll introduce this at the council tonight, and then at our next meeting, there'll be a full discussion on the council floor of this. And there are other aldermen who may be more convincing. So feel free to come back at our next meeting, because we're not voting this down tonight.
Okay.
That's not what's happening here.
Thank you.
This is a procedure, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so this will be on the agenda for an introduction, and at our next meeting, we'll continue as we just said. All right, next is ordinance 91-010, which grants a special use for a Type 2 restaurant at 1307.5 Chicago Avenue in the B1 zoning district. Do I have a motion?
Move approval.
Second?
Yes, Alderman Nguyen, you want to speak?
I think that this is an appropriate use for this location. This is an area in which we've had other restaurants similar to this, and I think the sooner we get this space, least up, the better.
Okay. Alderman Nguyen, is this restaurant related to any other restaurant with a similar name? Do you know?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay, just
Although perhaps
asking.
someone is here who can let us know.
Just asking. All right. Any other comments? Hearing none. All those in favor of recommending introduction and approval of the special use, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Next item is Ordinance 77-010, which amends various portions of the zoning ordinance relating to religious institutions in the business, commercial, and downtown zoning district. This is for action tonight. Could I have a motion? And then I'd like the privilege of speaking to this. Could I have a motion?
Move approval.
Okay. On Tuesday,
Second.
Second, thank you. On Tuesday, I see your hand, but I would like the opportunity to speak, please. On Tuesday, we had a tour of Howard Street, and we were there, I believe, close to 2 hours, and maybe an hour and a half. It seemed like, was it 2 hours? Yeah.
Felt like 3.
It felt like 3. Interestingly, we were there from 12:30 for a couple hours, and the quietness, the lethargy, it was just overwhelming. And we had numerous ministers with us. We had one from Howard Street, several from Chicago, others from other parts of Evanston. And I just would like to give an explanation for what I'm doing here. A special use is not, it is not a punishment of any kind. A special use is, as you've seen tonight, there were 2 special uses tonight. It's a process that we use to really control intense uses, doesn't deny any applicant. And one of the things that we find in our city is that if an alderman in a ward is very, very supportive of a special use, the council, at least in my experience, is very supportive of that alderman. So if a house of worship wants to start up a church or expand a church or a mosque or a synagogue in a business or commercial district, and the alderman is very supportive of it, and it isn't an impactful action, then there's absolutely no reason why this council will not vote to support the special use for that house of worship in a B or C district. Absolutely no reason. But when you take an area, and this really goes to Alderman Wilson's comments at our last meeting, that we need to look more globally at this. Looking more globally at this says that if there isn't an accumulated effect, then there isn't one, and we support it. But when you have a district where in one block there are 7 institutions almost in a row, because how many can you fit in one block, you've got a negative cumulative effect. There's just no 2 ways about it when the doors are closed all day long, at least 5 days a week, from 9 to 5. There's just no 2 ways about it. And what I'm asking is not that you, and this has to be a citywide thing and a district and a zoning-wide thing. I'm not saying that you should not have a house of worship in your ward in a C or B district, and I will support it 100% if you support it. I'm just saying the negative cumulative effect on Howard Street has become overwhelming. I understand perfectly well. I was raised a hardcore Catholic. When I was 5, I wanted to be a nun. I went to church every day. I was very, very committed. So I understand the social implications and the positive attributes of being involved in a religious community. I am saying that there is more to life and there is more to a community than a church or a mosque or a synagogue. There is. And we have to understand that there is a need for balance. Can you imagine if there were 5 or 6 or 7 churches, Alderman Jean-Baptiste, at the Dempster Dodge Shopping Center? The effect that would have on the activity in that shopping center would be so deadening. Can you imagine, Alderman Holmes, if at Church and Dodge, where all those businesses where people are coming in and out, getting their hair done, shopping, going to Boku, going here, going there, if all of those storefronts, 7 of them, were churches, can you imagine, or mosques or synagogues, whatever, houses of worship is really the appropriate term. And Alderman Nguyen, can you imagine if at the corner of Chicago Avenue and Main, let's say when the Main was there, that all those storefronts were houses of worship that were closed all day. It just creates a quietness that does not say retail, it does not say business, it does not say commercial. 1 or 2, I think it would really add to the community, 1 or 2 in a block. But our zoning code allows for an unlimited number, and I think it's a mistake. And I'm simply asking you to put this into effect so that we can make decisions based on the cumulative effect, which is a standard for special use. I'm not asking you to ban churches, to ban synagogues, to ban mosques. Good God, I'm not going to do that. The business with, well, if we want to expand our church, if we want to expand our synagogue, if we want to expand in a business or commercial district, you know what? The least of your problems, if you want to expand a property in this town, is the special use. You've got to go to building department. That's where the trouble's going to hit. So I think that is not a realistic argument against this. I'm simply asking that we do what other communities do. Look at Chicago. The reason why I believe the Evanston side has the accumulation of churches is because the Chicago side does not allow them. Other communities don't. You received a memo from our legal counsel showing all the precedent-setting cases. A special use is not a denial. A special use is not an infringement on religious freedom. Special uses are all over town. I'd love to ask our zoning department how many special uses we have in this town. I'm sure thousands of them. And, you know, I mean, just look at tonight. I mean, it is a way to plan a community. We've not planned our community in some respects. Some neighborhoods in this town are thrown away neighborhoods. And you might not represent one, but I feel that I've got the leftovers in some case, and sometimes it's easy to ignore. I saw a chamber map not long ago, and also a city map that I don't know who did. I think the wayfinding. Howard Street was not even on the map. That's pretty sad. So I'm asking you to help me and to help any other neighborhood that has 7 churches in one block, or 6 in another, or 5, especially where they're business or commercial districts. I would support wholeheartedly lifting any restriction, and we have special uses for churches in this town and other districts. I am saying that I would support in another ordinance, because you can't put it all in this, removal of the special use provision for churches in residential districts. But I am begging you and pleading you, the businesses are, and this doesn't stop anybody. It doesn't stop anybody. And I'm asking you to understand that and to take the responsibility of explaining and sharing your knowledge about special uses with those who are in your wards and who are concerned about the impact of this legislation. So, Alderman Jean-Baptiste.
Honorable Rainey, I think that it was a great thing that there was this special walk and, a lot of people participated. I think that response was an attempt on the part of the religious community to say they want to be part of that discussion. And because initially we didn't give them notice. Now that they have gone through the process and observed and experienced what you talked about, what I hear Reverend Dennis talking about is to be given an opportunity to suggest some language, some suggestions. And so I would like to be able to grant that opportunity so that there can be some discussion, and I don't think it jeopardizes anything. That doesn't mean that the language that may be suggested is language that we will necessarily accept, but I think the opportunity to do so is what we usually do. I remember when we were considering the issue of discrimination against Section 8 voucher holders. It was discussed at our committee level. Then there was an opportunity for property owners to weigh in on the discussion, and we went several sessions through the process to make sure that everybody had an opportunity to weigh in. So I don't know what other discussions there have been at committee level or with you since the walk, but I've heard basically the initial intervention 2 weeks ago, the walk about a week ago, and I hear some response today that says, we'd like to suggest some language because we think that there's some other impacts that maybe we are not considering. So I'm for giving a little more time for discussion and for the suggested modification that is being talked about, and hopefully that could be forthcoming at our next meeting.
Well, I would like our legal counsel to make a few comments regarding tinkering with the language on this.
Hold on one second.
I'm
Hold on one
trying this.
second.
I would
Hold on
like
one
him
second.
to do that.
I beg your pardon?
I am asking our legal counsel, you may speak for as long as you want, but I am asking our legal counsel to speak on the language that we have in this ordinance. That's all I'm asking, and I hope you will have the
On the
courtesy and
language that we have
respect.
in the ordinance?
Yeah, the language that we have before us.
Okay, I mean,
If that's what the ministers want to amend or change, I think we should hear from our legal counsel about the language and how it can be changed,
Oh, okay.
if it can be changed at all.
Okay. Go ahead, legal counsel.
Okay.
Madam Chairman, members of the committee, as I grant for our corporation counsel, as I stand here tonight, I do not know, I'm unaware of what proposed changes might be suggested. So I can't comment or I certainly would not presume to speculate on what changes they may or may not be able to propose that would either change the intent of the ordinance or the substance of the ordinance or both.
Well, could you tell us about the validity of the ordinance before us and and the legitimacy of it. I mean, I know you wrote it, so I'm sure it's legitimate, but
Well,
could you expand on our right to do this?
Well, with respect to the memorandum that is in tonight's council packet, the legal department did perform some exhaustive legal research with respect to some of the issues presented by this proposed ordinance, and it's our considered opinion that the ordinance on its face is a valid exercise. It's a rational exercise of council's power if it chose to affect the amendments to the zoning code as currently proposed. Essentially, what it boils down to is the City of Evanston's compelling interest in economic development and furthering commercial development in commercial and business zoning districts versus religious institutions. The case law is clear that they have to prove that there is a substantial burden on their exercise of their rights as a religious institution, and based upon, I believe, there's 4 cases that we've encapsulated and summarized and discussed in the memo. But I would specifically highlight the Petra case and the Club case. The Club case dealt with Chicago regulations, which are substantially similar to what the proposed ordinance has, and also relates back to your discussion, Alderman Rainey, of the Chicago approach. In a nutshell, we believe that the compelling interest rationally exercised in this instance, regulating the institutions as a special use, which is done in the case of several other institutions in the city. We recently approved an ordinance amendment regulating in animal hospitals as special use. It's a legitimate exercise of governmental power. Having said that, members of the committee, I do not know what proposed language the Reverend or members of his group could propose. So, I can't comment on that.
Right.
Well, I would just like to explain to the committee that nobody has reached out to me. I have reached out to them and had the tour, so nobody had the courtesy to come to me and say, here's some proposed language. All right, let's move on. Other people would like to speak, Alderman?
Excuse me.
Okay.
You have spoken long and hard on this, and I made a suggestion.
I'm fighting for something I feel is right.
You asked for legal counsel.
Yes, I did.
To address something that has not yet been proposed. Excuse me.
Right.
I have 1/9 right, okay?
I'm just waiting
to
for you
be
to
part
get-
of this process.
Yes,
as an
please.
alderman.
Please
so
continue.
please,
continue.
as chair of AMPW, you intervened several times to push stuff along, hold stuff back, whatever. I need to be able to express myself just like you, okay? Not just because you're the alderman of the 8th Ward, okay?
I apologize.
So my position is not so much whether or not we are right legally. It is the courtesy that I think ought to be extended to our constituents, our spiritual constituency, who have asked to participate. And so we've given them the opportunity. They said they think that there's some implications here that may be too restrictive for them, and they'd like to be able to make some suggestions. That doesn't mean that the suggestions are automatically accepted. They've not yet made them. So I would like to see our council accommodate that. We have meetings every 2 weeks. So between now and then, suggested language can be made. It could be considered so that when we meet the next time, we can focus on that and try to come to a vote. Okay? So that's what I am suggesting. And I'm asking you to extend that courtesy as the chair to the religious constituency of this community to be able to come back with some proposed languages. It may be relevant or may be irrelevant. It may be something that we ought to listen to or not. It's not a foregone conclusion, but I'm suggesting that we allow them to be part of that process as they have suggested.
All right, and describing part of the process means they would come forth with their recommendations, within the next week? We have holidays, we have one more meeting in December. So when could they get that information to me and to legal counsel so that we can take a look at it?
So why don't we ask the spokesperson?
Why don't, no, I think we need to take a leadership role in
No,
moving
you
this
asked the
forward.
question,
So,
and I
no,
don't have
I
an
thought
answer.
you were representing them. Can they come in 1 week with
Okay,
that
first of all,
information?
you know I'm not representing them.
I didn't know
Okay,
that.
you know I'm not representing them.
didn't
The
know
last
that.
time we discussed that, you said a shame on all of us for whatever we didn't yet do. So
What you're doing
please,
now.
let's calm down.
Okay.
And let's try to see if we can
I've
get a
been
process
working
going,
on this
okay?
for months and months and months,
I
Alderman.
understand that.
Months
We
and
all
months and
are in the
months.
same boat
Months and
together,
months and
okay?
months and months.
So you asked me when can they come? I don't know that, and I'm suggesting that we defer to
Well,
the
I would
spokesperson.
suggest, since this is the Planning and Development Committee, and we are members of the City Council, that we make a request of the religious community that they have this information into our legal counsel by next Monday, so that it can be reviewed, so that we can then have it the following week. How restrictive is it? I mean, is that
Let's
open?
get some
Could I-
feedback.
Madam Chair, could I make a
But
few
wait,
comments?
could I just find out, is there a problem with that, Alderman?
I don't have a problem with it. That's
Okay,
why I'm
all right.
saying that.
So let's
we
say,
ask
if
Reverend
you can
Dix-
have your changes to the ordinance in by next Monday, then we can have it, our staff has to get stuff to us by the following Thursday, and we'll have it before us at our next meeting.
And just for the record, when you say you, you're referring to me?
I don't know, whoever, I thought you said you wanted to have time to produce changes in the ordinance that would
I
make,
just wanted, just for clarity, let's go back to the sheet that you all produced on the last line. That's my only point.
that's the
That's my
agenda.
only point. Today's, whatever color this is, it says basically this ordinance was held at City Council meeting on November the 8th, 2010, and referred back to Planning and Development Committee
Which
for
is here.
further discussion.
Right.
We have not been invited to have further discussion. We didn't know that we needed to all sign up or have this meeting. It was, we went to the tour, we raised questions, but it was clear that we wanted to hear your viewpoint. We did not enter a discourse at that time. We simply believe, we're not fighting the ordinance. As such, we are questioning the implications within the language, and particularly as it singles out religious institutions, which is a part of the not-for-profit sector, and so forth. And I think that the city would be very interested in looking at the language, the implications also for further inference. There's a reason why people are coming to us and saying, please sign us up to endorse the letter. We have more than 15 petitions by citizens of the community, and they're still coming in.
Right.
I just think it's time for us to have a conversation. We're not trying to keep you from having economic development. We want to be part of that. In all due respect, we would love to be able to have something ready for you by next Monday. But given the Thanksgiving week, I think if you could give us a little bit more time, we will be happy to have for you our response and our suggestive language and the issues we therefore articulating, some of which have already been written, and you have a copy of them already.
Alderman Wilson?
Thank you. A couple things occurred to me, and it seems like we're really zeroing in on maybe one or two aspects of this. But first of all, one of the reservations I have about this that I think we could probably easily work around is with regard to the restrictions on expansion or rebuilding of a church that's a legal non-conforming use. I don't know that we have a full picture of what churches might be impacted by that. But setting that aside, one thing that strikes me is the comments that were made by the landlord who came up and spoke at about this adult daycare center. And that is, I think what we should do is look at why we have so many churches in this area. I would expect that this isn't because we're experiencing, contrary perhaps to the church leaders' desires, but I don't think it's because we're experiencing an overwhelming rush of people that are finding religion. I think that we're looking at a situation where probably landlords are desperate for tenants and are maybe lowering the bar, so to speak, as far as rents go and things of that nature. So I think maybe what we need to do is to consider the economic reasons for this And perhaps there's another way to approach it besides simply restricting the churches. And you'd mentioned before that you might be willing to entertain allowing the churches in the residential neighborhoods. I think that kind of opens a whole other component. People might not want all these churches to be moving into the neighborhoods. Isn't that what you said?
Now, there you go. Isn't it, I mean, how unchristian and
I'm saying,
Judaic can you get? I mean, that's,
Alderman Rainey, I strongly resent the statement that I am unchristian.
No, I said, if you're talking about people don't want it in the residential districts, I wasn't talking about you. I have no idea what your background is.
I think that the way you stated that came across that way.
Look, that's not what I meant. So don't do that. Don't do that. You'd like to speak? Everybody else?
Madam Chair, members of the committee, I'm just here as a good city manager does when you sense that perhaps you can help bring the group to a consensus for next steps. And what I think I hear the committee saying is an opportunity to have further discussion. I think there's some sensitivity regarding the Thanksgiving holiday. The council has 3 weeks, given the way the calendar falls. So I think that if it's not able for the beginning of next week, perhaps the end of next week, certainly staff can help coordinate a meeting with interested parties, working with Reverend Dennis, as we did with getting the tour together. We'd be happy to do that at a time that's convenient for folks, either at the very end of next week, which would be, the 1st or 2nd of December, or the beginning of the 3rd, or the beginning of the following week, which would still provide time before the council's next meeting. So if the committee would like to direct staff to coordinate such a meeting, to distribute the information, we would have some time. I think Mr. Farrar has done a good job of some groundwork. The committee members have raised some other additional issues which we could do some work on, bring that all together for that meeting, and then report back at the council's December 13th meeting.
I have an additional request of our staff that I hope you'll support, and that is I would like our planning department, community development department, to produce some planning documents on the presence of religious houses of worship in commercial and business districts. I've been reading a lot about that lately, and there seems to be an issue with certain areas of communities becoming religious districts, which simply close down retail and commercial activity.
Certainly, we can bring that.
I would like a couple of pages on the best practices, the best thinking these days on that issue.
Certainly. So I think we would have that information, the other issues that the committee's raised, whatever Reverend Dennison, the pastors group, puts together, bring that all together, convene a meeting, likely then, if not the 3rd, maybe the 6th, 7th, of 8th of December, and then have a report back for the council on the 13th.
And is there I don't know how confidential the congregations are, but for example, if we could learn something about the churches, we did a full circle survey, and Alderman Wilson and Alderman Jean-Baptiste, I know you know about this. We did a survey of every address on Howard Street. We worked with the police department and with the planning department, and only one religious institution on Howard Street would participate in that. And it was a survey about what do you think about the neighborhood, what do you think about the lighting, do you have any crime concerns, do you have any, traffic concerns. And so we really, one of the big problems is we know nothing about them, because when most people are on the street, the doors are locked, the curtains are pulled, and nobody can see in. And that's, of course, what we found on our tour as well. So if they could participate, the pastors could participate in this effort and share with us what's going on there. That would be really helpful.
The churches on Howard Street.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, staff will work again. We'll work with Pastor Dennis if he has contacts with some of the pastors at those churches, and we'll do our best to put some information.
I have never had a constituent come to me and say, "Hey, I go to one of those churches." So I'm just curious, and so.
So, Madam Chair, if that meets with your and the committee's approval, we'll move forward. I'll work with Pastor Dennis and get a meeting scheduled likely that very first part of the week of the 6th, and if we could get some information from his group on some thoughts on language, maybe at the end of next week. In the meantime, staff will attempt to gather up the additional information you've requested.
All right, and now that we've compromised on all of this, I would like to ask the committee's commitment to make this a special order of business on our December, is it 13th meeting? Okay. Could I ask for that, please? Alderman Jean-Baptiste?
Yeah, I mean,
Do I have a second
it
for
will
that?
be on the agenda on the 13th, right?
I'm asking that it be special order of business, that it be
And-
dealt with on the 13th, up or down. That's what I'm asking.
Well, I want to make sure that whatever is put forth, that I have a chance to take a look at it and be able to react to it. When you say dealt with up and down, whether we would
like
amend it.
the manager
we
said
would-
we have 3
because-
weeks. We have 3 weeks this time.
Yeah, I don't know where that one,
I don't know.
I mean, yeah, up and down and on the 13th,
Well, I
fine.
mean, you've been here, you know what a special order, you've put special orders
I
on.
understand that, but
But why
I
are you
mean,
acting like-
the insistence, we have a process that's going on.
We have to keep
People are
moving.
participating.
I'm
And you
asking-
insisting that we bring it to a closure on a date certain.
I think going forward in the new year, we should have some closure on this. That's what I'm thinking. But I need a second,
I'll second putting it on as a special order of business.
All right. Any further discussion? All those in favor of a special order, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? No. All right, 3-2, it'll be a special order of business in our next meeting. All right, that is all for, so could you just run through us again what the process is going to be with the religious community? You're going-
Certainly. Madam Chair, members of the committee, I think Pastor Dennis and the group of pastors have heard that there's an interest in getting some interest in writing some thoughts on the amendments to the ordinance, so we'd ask to get that, if not the first part, maybe the latter part of next week, so that would be maybe the 2nd or 3rd of December. In the meantime, we'll start working right away on scheduling a meeting for all interested parties, hopefully that first part of the following week, the 6th, 7th, and 8th, here at the Civic Center, and then have a report of those discussions on the council's agenda now as a special order of business on the 13th. of
Thank you. I
December.
think that's very fair. Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody, for getting us to this point. All right, hearing no other, anything else?
You just had a discussion item, Madam Chair, that the foreclosure activity, we could go through it quickly, or this is still a fairly standard report now, so we haven't changed it at all. Dennis Marino is here, he could go through it quickly, or we could go through it on the 13th, but it is the same reporting format that we've used previously.
Well, I raised several issues with the report. We have one property that's like 800,000 that sold for 53,000, and I think they're going to take a look at some of the numbers.
If I may, what we'd like to do for your next meeting is provide the detail on those property transactions through the auction process where the actual auction price was either much higher or much lower than the outstanding balance, so that we can provide some explanation on each of those. And then we'll also update another 30 days of data as well for your next meeting.
Can you tell us which of those properties are eligible for NSP2 participation? That's something I'm still confused about.
Certainly, most of the properties in the 8th Ward would be eligible, and the properties in the 5th Ward, in most cases, would be eligible west of Green Bay Road.
No, I know the neighborhoods. I'm just wondering, the individual cases, would the ones that went to auction and are real estate owned, those are all eligible to be?
Yes, without a doubt. Yes, if they are in the census tracts that are eligible census tracts, correct.
Of course.
Also, under amended rules under HUD, since the program was funded, we're also able to acquire property that has not gone through the completed foreclosure process. In certain cases, but the rule is that they be vacant. Again, in the eligible census tracts.
Right.
But
Okay,
what we'd like to do is give you an update at your next meeting.
Thank you, Dennis. Thank you. Anybody, questions, anybody?
Particular property that's been singled out as having had a balance due of $871,000, but yet selling for $53,000. What, do you know anything about this?
What we're going to do is pull the complete record on that one to confirm that. We did that with 2 other properties today that we were asked about specifically, and we're able to show that in both cases, in those properties, there was a second lien, which is why the bank bid a much higher number at the auction. In this case, what we'd like to do is pull the complete file and give you an answer in writing.
Okay, so you don't know right now, but you...
I don't know the full facts at this point. But it is an example, probably an extreme example of a statistical outlier that we'd, in the future, when that occurs in a report, we'll pull that and give you greater detail in the report.
That has to be a mistake. I mean,
Yeah, it
I
must
just
be.
can't, it has to be.
Must be.
All right, hearing nothing else, move to adjourn? What?
Second.
Oh, the next meeting, it's 20 minutes, right, from this meeting?
15.
So how about 15 minutes? All right, just a few minutes before 9. How could you do this to me?